For the most part, camping is a fun experience, doing a little barbecue, going out fishing, and taking a hike. But when night hits, things may sometimes seem a little more freaky. And if you're a little something like me, there were definitely some times when you're convinced something was just out there in the woods, following and just watching you. So without further ado, I'm your host Andrew, and here are your top 10 scary camping stories that will make you unpack your bags part 2. Let's get right into this list. At a number 10 spot, we have the campgrounds. Camping is just one of those things that keeps us connected to nature, except sometimes that connection can be a little too strong. YouTuber MBG Films went out on a camping trip with some friends and began to record their nighttime activities until he discovered something a lot more terrifying.
Well, you've been sharpening it for like 2 hours. You hear something?
Whatever it is in the video, you can all tell that it is walking on all fours and is longer than any human that we know of. As well, the creature appears to be moving very fast, and it only appears for a few frames and then completely vanishes off of it. What do you guys think this is? A lot of people have claimed what we see here is either a deer or a kangaroo, but in my opinion, this looks nothing close to either of those animals. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. At our number 9 spot, we have Not a Mountain Lion. If you live in a rural town surrounded by only mountains and forests, camping can be a pretty nice hobby. For one Reddit user who is one of these types of people, he told a story about a time when he and his friend broke off from their group to camp by a better spot. But it ended up being one of their most traumatic nights they could recall. They only brought one tent for the group, so they built a lean-to against a large boulder in a clearing. As the night went by, one of the two men had an eerie feeling that something was watching them as they heard bushes moving and sticks cracking all around them. At first, they just assumed it was a mountain lion, and for the majority of us, this would have been pretty terrifying. But since this guy was a frequent camper, he already knew how to deal with them, so for him, it wasn't that big of a deal. And to ease their nerves further, they added more logs to the fire. But as they were throwing more logs, the silhouette of a man was seen standing at the edge of a clearing about 80 yards away from them. They were frozen and just couldn't take their eyes off him while he seemingly stared back at them. The man eventually walked off in the opposite direction after a minute or two. While the former Redditor doubts the man had any ill intentions, they held onto their friend's firearm the whole night. They would recall the man disappearing into the darkness of the night, with the Reddit user and his friends staying on constant watch for the remainder of the night. But all in all, this situation just shows how encountering a stranger out camping is much more terrifying than any sort of wildlife. At a number 8 spot, we have the Devil's Tramping Ground. Located in the dense forest of the Harper Crossroad area in Bear Creek, North Carolina, lies a camping ground known as the Devil's Tramping Ground. And I know, the name alone should tell you all about this place. Because in local lore, they suggest this is the location where the devil, quote, tramps, and this has supposedly caused a small circle in the area to become lifeless and never have the ability to grow anything. It seems that locals have even tried to revive the area by planting various seeds and even using a bunch of fertilizers, but nothing seems to be able to fully grow within this circle of land. Some historians believe that this was also an ancient meeting place for the local Native American tribes around the area. They would come here to do ceremonial dances and other festivals, and some say there was some sacrifices done here as well. In the 1930s, newspapers were hit with news that a beast was guarding the grounds. The story read, quote, "Coon and possum hunters and their dogs have been on more than one occasion chased from the vicinity of the Devil's Tramping Ground by a ferocious beast said to resemble a black bear." At our number 7 spot, we have the Ghost of Saline River. The legend of Takaluma, or the Ghost of Saline River, is a frightening tale that has been passed down for generations in Kansas. According to the legend, Takaluma was an old Native American who was condemned to wander the banks of the Saline River after his death. His ghost is said to roam the river at night, searching for his father's skull, who was the chief and was murdered by early settlers. So fast forward, and one night, a cowboy camping on the riverbank had a terrifying encounter with the ghost of Takaluma. The cowboy heard a loud yell and saw the ghost standing in front of him, a powerful looking Indian with piercing eyes and a mocking laugh. Despite trying to defend himself with his revolver, the cowboy's bullets seemed to have no effect on the spirit. Takaluma spoke to the cowboy in English, telling him a story of his people and their journey to the valley where they made their home. Takaluma described a pestilence which decimated the tribe and their wigwams decayed, leaving no trace of their existence. Then he continued on saying that the white man came and disturbed the rest of Takaluma's people with his plow. The ghost asked the cowboy to help right the wrongs that had been done to his people and to find the skull of his father, more importantly. However, some say the cowboy never ended up finding the skull, so Takaluma's spirit is still around the Saline River on cold nights asking for people to find his father's skull. Number 6. The woman crawling and whispering. During their family camping trips to a state park, a Reddit user by the name of KMIA official and their friend had a nightly ritual of exploring the nearby woods and occasionally camping some nights. However, one night they ventured further than usual with flashlights turned off and heard soft whispering behind them. Upon turning their lights on, they didn't see anything, but the whispering continued. As they decided to head back, they saw a lady crawling on the ground whispering random words, covered in dirt and just wearing these really dark clothing. When she realized they saw her, she stood up and claimed to be lost and looking for her campsite. They escorted her back to the campground and discovered that she was just really heavily intoxicated and had just gone lost trying to find a bathroom. In the hump of our list, we have the child demon. As a summer camp counselor in Southern California, Reddit user He Flying Cheese was no stranger to the various animals that roam the woods, from harmless deer and foxes to more dangerous predators like coyotes and mountain lions. One night after putting the kids to bed, the Reddit user was approached by their friend Sadie, who was visibly shaking with a group of teenage girls dressed in black. They claimed to have heard a ghostly voice while on a night hike, prompting the counselor to investigate immediately. As they walk towards the sound, they hear a faint help from a small child. The noise becomes increasingly distorted and then eventually demonic. It almost seems like it's screeching out its best impression of a child's voice. Fearing for their safety, the counselor quickly returned to the safety of the main camp, where they decide not to investigate and just stay safe. Number 4. Boy Scout Lane. This isolated rural street in Linwood, Portage County is said to be one of America's most haunted roads. It's only less than a mile long, but it's notorious for the things that happen on this road. The road gets its name Boy Scout Lane because this is the location where a group of Boy Scouts were murdered on their camping trip during the late 1950s. The case never ended up getting solved, but many people had their own theories. Some believe the murderer was their scoutmaster, while others believed it was the bus driver who drove them to the woods. Regardless of what story is true, what is said is that these Boy Scouts haunt the forest around this stretch of road, and some who drive on this road see 4 distinct lights in the distance which are supposed to resemble the 4 Boy Scouts looking to get through the forest. But if you decide to be brave enough and camp out there, you will most likely hear the sounds of footsteps and breaking branches coming in all sorts of directions in the middle of the night. And if you don't like camping and you sleep in a car, you may wake up with childlike handprints on your vehicle. So if you can, just try to avoid the street at all costs. Number 3. Aliens. Reddit user Dashboard for Fire saw an alien come out of the woods behind their house. They were only 10 years old at the time at the event, playing in the room alone. It was only about 11 p.m. and they had the sliding glass door in the room open with the blinds pulled back. Out of nowhere, the automatic light behind their house just turned on. They looked out of the sliding glass door and saw a figure approach the door. At first, they thought it was their neighbor, but as they looked closer, they realized it had to be something else. It stopped at the sliding glass door and stared into the Reddit user's room. They described it as a dark black figure with a rounded head and stood about 6 feet tall. It was very slender and it stared for a few minutes and then suddenly turned and was gone. Number 2. The Allagash Abduction. The Allagash Abduction is one of the most famous Men in Black cases in history. In 1976, 4 college students from Maine were out camping near Allagash Waterway when they noticed a strange light in the night sky. Initially believing it to be an airplane, the group soon realized that what they were witnessing was something far more mysterious as the light began to move around erratically before eventually disappearing. A few minutes later, the group heard a loud humming sound coming from above and saw 2 bright lights in the sky, and this time they knew it wasn't an airplane. The next thing they remembered was waking up hours later with no recollection of what had happened during those hours. The 4 men reported that their abductors had gray skin with large eyes and bald heads and commuted telepathically with them during their experience. They were taken aboard a UFO where various medical tests were performed on them before being released back to their campsite. Afterwards, the men encountered 2 men in black who warned them not to tell anyone about their experience or else they face serious consequences. At number 1 spot, we have the Wendigo. This was also actually a legend I heard growing up, and they used to tell this around campfires, and it was absolutely terrifying, like keep you at night terrifying. A Wendigo is said to be a very rare demon. They are described as strong monsters that have a very powerful desire to eat and kill their victims, which happen to be us, humans. The legend states that a Wendigo can possess you and turn you into one itself if the person is greedy enough or weak enough and wander in the woods alone at night. And more so when the victims are out camping. There are multiple myths talking about what Wendigos look like, but majority of them describe them to look like an animal, but very tall with a skull as a head, long legs, and their whole body covered in hair and drenched in blood. They are said to be very fast with strength like no other, super hearing, amazing sense of smell, and said to walk on water. Like Jesus? So be safe camping this summer, everyone. These are your top 10 scary camping stories that will send chills up your spine, part 2. What did you guys think about this list? Leave a comment down below with your thoughts and some suggestions for some future videos. I'm your host Andrew, and be sure to click that like button, subscribe, and that bell notification so you never miss a future video again. Hope you guys have a scary day.